The challenge was to develop students' professional communication skills, and this is both in terms of oral skills but also written skills. The approach was actually have a two-prong assignment in the sense that at the end of the day the students were going to write a business letter of advice, but prior to that they also conducted a client interview. So after receiving an initial email from their client, they had to prepare for a client interview. Now, in preparing for this client interview, they had to think about how they would conduct themselves as a professional advisor, either an accountant, financial planner, or a lawyer. So that made them reflect upon that. That's in terms of the way they did the initial introduction, in terms of the client, the way they conducted the meeting, and the way they probed, sometimes for personal details, and how they would actually phrase questions. In addition to that, once all the client interviews were done and they were provided with the full facts, they then had to go and write a business letter of advice. Now this was quite challenging for a lot of the students because a lot of times they're used to writing assignments or writing exam answers. But writing a business letter of advice is quite a different skill, and so not only do they need to come up with the correct solution, they need to be able to convert that into writing that technical information into an accessible way that not only the client will understand, but the client will know what it means in terms of their future business operations. So to assist with that, we got a business advisor to come in to talk about what is a good way to conduct a client interview, but then also to discuss what makes a good letter of advice. In addition to that, we had templates in terms of letter of advices, so students could actually see a template of what the structure of a letter of advice and how it should be set out. Additionally, there was a marking criteria, and that criteria showed the important elements that they needed to have in terms of a business letter of advice. So not only did it address the technical knowledge, but also how their written communication would be understood, how it provided solutions to the client, and so that demonstrated to them how the importance of those softer skills were critical in writing clearly to their client. In addition, past student exemplars were provided in terms of past students writing letter of advices, and that was both high performing students as well as students who had achieved quite well, and also the students who actually failed. And so they could see the difference of what actually a good letter of advice looked like compared to not such a good. And by seeing that, it demonstrated what things had gone wrong previously, as well as what things they should aspire to. The outcomes generally were improved communication skills, both in terms of oral as well as written. Even for those students who actually struggled, the feedback they got really helped them to develop, both in terms of the initial client interview. It really made them reflect upon how critical it is to conduct yourself to a client, because a client in a professional practice is your main asset, and it's important how you conduct yourself. Additionally, with the letter of advice, it really demonstrated to the students that while they might have the technical expertise in the area, that technical expertise is of little value if you can't write and communicate that clearly to a client. And it really demonstrates the difference between academic writing compared to business letter writing. Additionally, I think an important skill or attribute that got developed by the students through this is their confidence. In terms of that, even though some found the client interview very daunting, by going through the process, they felt more confident in themselves. And you saw some of the students who were the best client interviewers had very low confidence. And once they received the feedback, then they felt better in terms of that. And that's critical when you've got third year students who are not only about to enter the profession, they're going through graduate interviews at the time. And so that confidence building is really important. Also, it gives the students a great example, so when they're going for their own graduate job interviews, they can have a concrete example of when they actually demonstrated these professional skills. Because students can find this a very confronting thing in terms of both the oral as well as written, and it's confronting in the sense that it's actually asking them to do something that's quite different to maybe what they've had previously in their degree, because you're really looking at business communication skill and business writing. And so because it can be quite different, you need to actually develop the resources that the students will need. So in terms of the resources, having a template example of a letter of advice, also in terms of the highlighting to the students the actual criteria, the rubrics that they're marked against, and showing that's what the criteria and the qualities that we're looking for. Additionally, trying to get guest lecturers in to talk about what it is. And sometimes, particularly if it's going to be about professional communication, it's good to get an industry person in to talk about that, because that industry person will have more credence and relevance to the students. Also, it's important to have past exemplars. Those past exemplars will really help solidify to the students what a good assignment business letter looks like compared to a poor one.